between the current Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance. So we'll get started out with the state of Nevada and then move eastward. We'll add a tilt rating in the state of Nevada. So I should point, we'll fill out the map based on what it was like in 2024. So in 2024, it was not a good election year for Democrats. This is when Harris was winning last time. And all of these states were in the Republican Party's column, and the state of Arizona was even in the lean Republican Party out of the core 7 swing states. So definitely not a good showing for Democrats. I do think the national environment now is much better for Democrats. We can see that reflected in the polling and the prediction betting markets. Currently have Democrats at about a 60% chance of winning control of the presidency in 2028. Still quite a ways out until then, so a lot really could change. But I do think at the moment Democrats are favored just in this hypothetical election scenario if the election were to be held today. So this is not the real prediction. This is just what happened 2 years ago in 2024. Now we'll get started with the real prediction. I do think several states will flip. I'm going to start out with the state of Nevada. Harris ended up losing this state in 2024, which was particularly interesting. Even Harris was, oh no, sorry, no, even Hillary Clinton was able to win it in 2016, and that was not a great performance for Democrats either. But in 2024, it went red. The state also has a Republican governor. He is up for re-election this November, and that will be a really telling race on which way the state is leaning on the presidential level for 2 years after 2026 and 2028. But as far as Nevada goes, I think Harris would be able to narrowly win this state. I do think it would be close. And then I talked a little bit about Arizona earlier, but this state was actually in the lean red column. It was definitely in the Republican Party's column by a fairly significant margin, especially when Arizona is considered as a swing state. Biden was able to win Arizona in 2020, and I don't think Harris would be able to quite bridge the gap that Biden was able to do with moderate swing voters in the Phoenix area. But it's certainly a possibility, so I'm just going to put it in the toss-up column. And then we're going to get to the state of, well, actually, before we get to any other state, we're going to go to the congressional district in the Omaha region. This district, it was really the only competitive race that Harris ended up winning. It's kind of a blue dot in a red sea, and she was able to win it. It was by a tilt margin. Interestingly enough, the Republican for the House seat for that same congressional district ended up winning his election, Don Bacon, and so it's a bit of a split vote there. But I think that this seat is most certainly going to flip blue on the House level in 2026. And I think on the presidential level, I think Harris would win this same district, and I think it would be by a lean margin instead of a tilt. So that's going to be the call there in the Omaha area. And then we'll do the bottom half of the swing states in the southeast for the state of Georgia. Georgia, I'm really not certain how to call this. I think it really could go either way. Georgia is definitely going to be a swing state. I think that the Senate race as well as the gubernatorial race come this November will be good indicators on which way the state is leaning when it comes to 2028. I think if I had to call it, I think Harris would narrowly be able to win the state of Georgia. So that's going to be 16 more electoral college votes for Harris. And then North Carolina, however, though, I don't think that Harris would be able to win this one. This one I'm fairly confident, well, as confident as you can be for a swing state, that it will be going to the Republican, J.D. Vance. We'll fix the state there of Virginia. And then we can head up to the Rust Belt. The Rust Belt states will be really the ones that ultimately determine the presidency. Wisconsin, interestingly enough, was actually the closest of the battleground states in 2024. It did end up voting for Trump, however, though, so definitely not in the Harris column. But currently, I do think Democrats are favored to win the presidency at large, and I do think in the Rust Belt, we'll start with the state of Wisconsin. Most confident on that one. Going to put the state of Wisconsin into the tilt blue column. That's going to be 10 more votes for Harris, 258 to 246. So for Vice President Vance to win, he would need to win the remaining 2. And well, we can do some quick math here. If Vance were to win the state of Pennsylvania, but closer. We can do some hypotheticals there, but ultimately I don't think it will matter. I do think Harris would probably win the state of Michigan, and I think if those two swing states are voting together, generally the three vote together, and I think that they would go to Harris, but I do think it would be narrow. I don't think she's the strongest nominee. I think many other Democrats, I've done predictions, and other Democrats would fare much better, but this is still nonetheless a victory for the Democrats. 292 to 246, more narrow than it generally is for many of my other predictions, but I think with Harris, this is roughly the result that it would be. Feel free to agree or disagree with me in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.